الرجيم. بفضل الله، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم را. تلك آيات الكتاب المبين. تلك آيات الكتاب والذي أنزل إليك من ربك الحق ولكن أكثر الناس لا يؤمنون. الله الذي رفع السماوات بغير عمد ترونها ثم استوى على العرش وسخر الشمس والقمر كل يجري لأجل مسمى يدبر الأمر يفصل الآيات لعلكم بلقاء ربكم توقنون. وهو الذي مد الأرض وجعل فيها رواسي وأنهارا ومن كل الثمرات جعل فيها زوجين اثنين يغشي الليل النهار إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون. وفي الأرض قطع متجاورات وجنات من أعناب وزرع ونخيل وصنوان وجنات من أعناب وزرع ونخيل صنوان وغير صنوان يسقى بماء واحد ونفضل بعضها على بعض في الأكل إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يعقلون. وإن تعجب فعجب قولهم أإذا كنا ترابا أإنا لفي خلق جديد أولئك الذين كفروا بربهم وأولئك الأغلال في أعناقهم وأولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون. ويستعجلونك بالسيئة قبل الحسنة وقد خلت من قبلهم المثلات وإن ربك لذو مغفرة للناس على ظلمهم وإن ربك لشديد العقاب. ويقول الذين كفروا لولا أنزل عليه آية من ربه إنما أنت منذر ولكل قوم هاد. الله يعلم ما تحمل كل أنثى وما تغيض الأرحام وما تزداد وكل شيء عنده بمقدار. عالم الغيب والشهادة الكبير المتعال سواء منكم من أسر القول ومن جهر به ومن هو مستخف بالليل وسارب بالنهار له معقبات من بين يديه ومن خلفه يحفظونه من أمر الله إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم وإذا أراد الله بقوم سوءا فلا مرد له وما لهم من دونه من وال. هو الذي يريكم البرق خوفا وطمعا وينشئ السحاب الثقال ويسبح الرعد بحمده والملائكة من خيفته ويرسل الصواعق فيصيب بها من يشاء وهم يجادلون في الله وهو شديد المحال. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
No words. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين. قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Do you hate your life? As a person, am I someone that detests the way I live and what my life is about? One of the reasons that people detest their life, because they perceive their life to have no purpose. There are no goals to achieve. They have no aim in life. And every obstacle that comes before them is viewed as the end of the road. One must keep in mind that you're not the only one. Everyone has a problem. Everyone has demons. Everyone has skeletons. Everyone hits a wall in their life. But not everyone sees these things as reasons to stop progressing. What are these goals or these aims or these objectives in life? And are they relevant? Before I take upon any task or undertake any task, I have an aim. Even in science in school, you have an experiment. The first thing you write is what? The aim. What's the purpose of doing this experiment? I just don't get two chemicals and put them together, just see what happens. I need to understand, why am I mixing this with that? Why am I doing this experiment? Why am I observing this? What is the objective here? If someone has a proposal, someone comes up to you and says, listen, I want to build a big center. Okay, and you say, okay, where do you want to build this center? Why do you want to build this center? Aren't these questions you ask, or do people just fork out the money? See, go for it, build this center wherever you're going to build it. Timbuktu, wherever you want, just build a center. There has to be a purpose. For a proposal, I need to have some kind of objective. Some people just say, hold on, but I don't have any objectives. I don't have any goals. I don't have any aspirations. How do I find aspirations and goals in my life? And this is very difficult. You see this often, you ask people that they're lost. First thing is you have to look at yourself. What is it within me that I have to fix? And the easiest way to do this is not to look at it yourself. Go to the bluntest person you know. You know, there's people that will just say it. The Kramers in society. You can go up to them and tell them what you think. Ask them about yourself and they will tell you exactly what's wrong with you. What do I need? And then I look at myself. What is it that I need? What do I need to fix in my life? And I list what it is. And there you have it. Now you have a goal. Now you have an objective. The question then arises, is it important for me to have goals? Is it important for me to have aspirations? Is it important for me to have a purpose in life? If I don't have a purpose, like I said, my life comes to a subtle end. That's why you sometimes see people that you think have a good life and they're enjoying their life, and then suddenly they take their own life. Why did they take their life? Why did it all end all of a sudden? This person was living such a good life by the standards of what humans perceive it to be, but why did their lives come to an end? Al-Imam al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh, begins with a narration. He says, Innama. All those that remember when we say Innama, what does that mean? It's this and only this, or that and only that. It's like saying most certainly. There's no doubt here. Most certainly, indeed. He says, Al-a'malu bin-niyat. That actions are done with what? An intention. So there's a purpose. You just don't do things an abath. I was talking to someone recently, and he had brought someone towards Islam. I said, that's good, you'll get rewarded well. He said, I don't do it for reward. I said, then what do you do it for? He said, I just do things. He just does things, you know? A bit like a genetic mutation. Just happens. Just something that just occurs. You know, he's very sporadic in his life, just does things and they just happen. There's an intention, there's a purpose. Why am I doing this? Al-a'malu bin-niyat. Am I doing something? What is my intention? What is the reasoning behind what I am doing? And then the Imam says, وَلِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. Why? Because you're going to get what your intention was. Doesn't matter what you did. What was your intention? Recognition? That's what you're going to get. What was your intention? Money? That's what you're going to get. What was your intention? Rida Allah? Allah's acceptance? That's what you're going to get. So then the Imam says, وَلَا بُدَّ لِلْعَبْدِ مِنْ خَالِصِ النِّيَّةِ في كل حركة وسكون. ولا بد. That everything that I do must have خالص النية. What does خالص النية mean? Pure intention. That the goal that I'm aiming has to be a pure goal. There has to be a purpose for what I do. It's not just like I'm rolling a dice, whatever the number comes up, that's it, just keep going. There has to be a purpose to what I'm doing. And then he says, في كل حركة في كل حركة وسكون. In every action or inaction. Why am I doing what I'm doing? I'm not just doing it an abath, with no purpose and no aim whatsoever. Because then he says, لأنه إذا لم يكن هذا المعنى يكون غافلا. If there isn't this purpose or reasoning, then this person's what? Ghafil. What's a ghafil? And they say, Ya ghafil, like Allah. What do they mean when they say, Ya ghafil? What's a ghafil? Someone that's inadvertent. You know those people that things work out by coincidence for them? They just fall into things. You know, they're just on their merry way and something just happens for them, or something happens against them. You know, wrong place, wrong time, or right place, right time, that's it. You're ghafil. And the Imam says about this, وَالْغَافِلُونَ قَدْ وَصَفَهُمُ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى فَقَالَ أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ سَبِيلًا. He said that these people that are ghafil, these people that are inadvertent, these people that are inattentive, these people that aren't aware of what's going on, they just do things as they move along. He says they are like the an'am. What are an'am? An'am are the animals that graze. You know those animals that graze? Why do we use grazers? Especially, what does it mean? Cows and sheep and goats. Why? What do they do? What's their purpose? Honestly, go get a cow, put it out in the wild. What happens to the cow? Get a sheep, put it in the wild. How long does it last? What's a sheep do? What does a goat do? We're talking about these are domesticated animals. What do? They eat and defecate. Wait to be, as the proverb is, like lambs for the slaughter. That's all they're there. Their purpose is to be used. They're completely only there, and their existence is what the humans use them for. So in other words, that they become like a grazer. Or he says, وَقَالَ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ, that Allah Azza wa Jal mentions. This is what hadith says. They are the ones that are unaware. They're the ones in that we say a living coma. They're actually moving around, but they don't know what is happening about them. Then he says, ثُمَّ النِّيَّةُ تَبْدُو مِنَ الْقَلْبِ عَلَى قَدْرِ صَفَاءِ الْمَعْرِفَةِ. The niyyah begins, the purpose or your intention begins where? In the qalb, in your soul, in your intellect. This is where it begins. What? When it says qalb, we're not talking about your organ that pumps blood. We're talking about the actual soul. This is where it begins with, the intellect. And it's based upon what? How clear is your understanding? What is my purpose? When you're in this world, what is your purpose? I remember I was in a car with someone and he was driving me to a majlis. I've said this before. And I said, why are you a Shia? Why do you follow Ahlul Bayt? And he looked at me. He said, because my parents are in it. That's what he said. My parents are Shia, I'm Shia. And I said, what kind of an answer is this? Why are you here where you are? Because this is what the mushrikeen, the polytheists said. Why are you this? Because we found our forefathers like this, so we followed on their way. Isn't that what they said? Why are you? What is your purpose? Why do you do this? You ask someone, why are you studying this? My parents want me to study this. Why do you do this? My friend told me to do this. What is the purpose for the goal that you wish to achieve? Because not only are setting goals necessary, but setting the correct goals are even more important. Having the right objectives in your life. Because you need to desire what it is that you want to achieve. You can't just put a goal that you don't even desire. And this is why the Imam says in the narration, he says, أَعْقَلُ النَّاسِ أَنْظَرُهُمْ فِي الْعَوَاقِبِ. To the most intellectual, the most understanding of people are the ones that can see the consequences. They can see, this is what we call this foresight. They can see into the future. They can see what's going to happen. They can see this path where it's going to take me. You know, when you ask people about the friends they keep, this is a really funny thing. You know, people get asked. I ask people, the friends that you keep, do you want to be with them on the Day of Judgment? And then they freeze. The guy I'm hanging out, I want to be with this person on the Day of Judgment. No. Then why do you keep him as a friend? Think about that. Do you want to be with that person on the Day of Judgment? Is this someone that reminds you of the Day of Judgment? Or is this someone that reminds you of everything that Allah Azza wa Jal has forbade? Obviously, there are goals in your life or things that might be forced upon you. As a child, every parent wants their kid to become a doctor. You're going to become a doctor. The child could be daft, you know, as a plasterboard, but the parents want them to become a doctor. But you want to be the best at what you set out to achieve to begin with. And people that don't have any objective in life, they're not successful in life at all. Okay? Even I remember when a friend of mine, he used to train in a gym, he used to mock the people that don't bring a pen and paper. And I used to ask him why. He said, these people that come and train, they don't know how much they've progressed. They don't know what their objectives in their training are, what they wish to be. I said, yes, they do. He said, what? It's called steroids. They use something that supplements what they miss. They miss the winter, they start training before the summer. So anyway, some people say, why should I set goals if I can't achieve these goals? Okay? Simple answer. What's the answer? Don't set unachievable goals. Simple answer. You don't need to be intelligent. Don't sit there and think. Have you noticed these people that sit and watch seminars? They get all these a billionaire comes to talk. Like, look at Elon Musk. He puts a picture of a dog and then all the people start buying shares because they see a picture of a dog. People just wait for it. Like, Elon Musk is a prophet to people. He says something, people wait for it. And billionaires are like that. One of the billionaire advisors a lot of people listen to was a billionaire investor called Charlie Munger. But Charlie Munger said something very important once. He says, this woman wants to become a billionaire investor. She wants to invest. He said to her, listen, somebody has to be the 99%. Not everyone can be the 1%. Somebody has to be the 99%. Somebody has to be everybody else. Everyone has a role. You know, sometimes people ask, why can't I be ma'soom? Why can't I be like Ahl Bayt? Why can't I be the one that's ma'soom? And if you actually ask the plants, you know, what plant do you want to be? You know, they'll say, oh, I want to be a rose. Then on the rose, you ask all the things on the rose, the thorns say, why do I have to be a thorn? I want to be one of the petals. And then if you ask all the roses, they say, we want to be an animal. Then through the animals, they'll get to, we want to be a peacock. And then the peacocks will say, we want to be a human. And then the humans will say, we want to be Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then the entire anatomy of the Prophet will say, we want to be Aql Muhammad. We want to be the intellect of Rasulullah. Then the whole universe will all become the intellect of the Prophet. Because everyone wants to be what's best. Everything has its place. Everything has its position. Everything has its calling, and that's what your trial's for. For what it is that is yours. And not for something that isn't yours at all. Furthermore, everything is only achievable through what? Primarily. First and foremost is through Allah Azza wa Jal. A big problem when it comes to setting goals and aspirations is people rely on the mediums. People rely on the proxies. They say, I need a wasta. I need connections to get somewhere. You don't need the connections. The connections are there. They come in life. You can have them and use them, but you can't rely on them. Because these connections, you know, sometimes, for example, people in construction, they start to know someone in the council to get a job done. But that person that you know in the council that's helping you is taking bids and proposals from other people too. He's not loyal. He's loyal to one thing. He's loyal to what? The money. But the only one that is always loyal to you and always looks out for you is Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Azza wa Jal has never left you. In fact, there's a hadith Qudsi. Allah Azza wa Jal says, لَأَقْطَعَنَّ أَمَلَ كُلِّ مُؤَمِّلٍ غَيْرِي بِالْيَأْسِ. Allah will crush your hopes. With what? With despair if you rely on someone else. If your hope is in others, I will make you despair. I will make you despondent. I will make you think it's the end of the line. That's what happens. That's why it becomes the end of the line. Because your hope is not solely on Allah Azza wa Jal. Does that mean we should set goals? Of course it means we should set goals. But how do I go about this? Firstly, when it comes to goals, many of our goals are what? Scattered. They're all over the place. You know, I sat down and I had an Excel sheet and I had about 30 something things I wanted to do. And I looked at a list. I had so many books that are unfinished. I haven't even finished them. So I said, these aren't going to ever be complete. So then I did some, let's see, I put them aside and then I work out what it is I'm going to set, what am I going to do first, and so on and so forth. Before I finish, and this is what we used to do, we all do, a lot of us do, some don't, that before we complete, and I speak first and foremost about myself, a project, we start on the next project. So what are we left with all these open-ended projects that haven't been finished? And our whole life becomes full of incomplete projects. Now, as I mentioned before, if I was to grab any of the youth and ask them, what do you wish to be when you grow up? What's the main answer you'll get? I don't know. No one knows what most of them, they don't know what they're going to do. They don't have an idea is the answer. Some people, their objective or their goal is only dunyawi. They only have a dunya objective when it comes to what they're going to do. I remember I met one of the sheikhs in Lebanon. He said to me that a relative of his came from overseas. He was a professor in a university, studied. He said, as I was talking to him, I realized this guy is in his 50s. He doesn't even know how to do ghusl. He said, you're a professor that doesn't even know how to do ghusl. You haven't even got a prayer that's been attributed to you. This is the problem. Some people's goals are what? Their aspirations are only linked to the dunya. As for the hereafter, it can go to hell. And then there are those, like that man that was in the masjid, praying day and night, and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam entered, and he saw him. And he said, this man's always in the masjid. Does he have a family? They said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. He said, who provides for his family? They said, his brother. He said, his brother is better than him. I need to have this balance between this world and the other world, and the hereafter. Okay, how do I set what my goals are going to be? Firstly, you need to set your goals with what you have been given and what you are able, as I mentioned before, to achieve. What am I good at? And how do I determine what I'm actually good at? Take a look at students when they go to the hawza. Everyone that enters the hawza, if you were, same thing, like a student going to school, what are you here for? They tell you, well, the hawza, the objective of the hawza is to know how to extrapolate law. Okay, brother, sit down. Do you know how many marjas are out there? There's a handful. There's not that many. I'm talking about bona fide marja. Not everyone, not everyone that dresses, just like if you've seen this world, not everyone that dresses in the garb is there. If you take a good example, you look in the world, you see how many people have claimed to be the successor for Imam al-Mahdi, and they're standing. There's a lot of people that come out and say that we are this and that. But we're talking about people that can genuinely, bona fide scholars that can extrapolate law. So not everyone's going to be a jurist. Not everyone's going to be a muassis, a founder. Those people that leave and they start. There's some people, what they do is they start talking to a different batch of people and say, look, I assessed 2,000 things, but he did nothing. All he did was talk and they never eventuated. Those people, those false resumes where they say, I've built 2,000 schools, and there's no evidence of them even existing. I did this and I did that, and I climbed to the moon, and I was in Sputnik 1 or whatever, Sputnik 1 or whatever. They're those people that talk and talk. There are people that are able to be founders. Why? Because they know people, and they know their way, they know the demographics of society, they know the geography of the world, where to go, what is needed, and they know their way in life. Then you have those that are propagators, those that will propagate the faith. The khutabat, the muballighin, the ones that will go out to places and teach. So everyone has a goal when they enter the seminary. If I don't have a goal from the outset, what am I doing? I'm just studying whatever the curriculum is and where it will take me. If you go down, for example, you want to study, you enter university and you say, all right, I'm just going to go in there in the first subject that gets me in. And then you find yourself after 10 years, you see those guys that they're in uni, those lifetime students. They have white hairs and they're still in university. Someone says, hey, I'm getting my second master's degree. What do you plan on doing? Well, one guy once told me, he said, why don't you get a PhD? I said, what for? He said, Sheikh, doctor, it's got a good ring to it. That's what he actually said to me. He said, it's got a good ring to it. You're a doctor and a sheikh. I go, but doctor in what? Doctor in orthopedics? Well, doctor in what? What do you want me to be a doctor? Doctor in arts? What does it support the Mumbar? How does it support the teachings of Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam? So what am I doing just to get a doctorate for the sake? You'd be surprised. Next time you meet, I'm not putting anyone down, but next time you meet a Sayyid doctor or a Sheikh doctor, ask them what their doctorate's in. What are you studying? And then ask them, how does that link to the teachings of Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam? And let them show. Some of them will have something good to tell you. Some of them you say, how does that link with that? How does that come to that? So what is the purpose of what I'm about to do? Okay. And the role, obviously, of the teacher or the mentor is to advise you there. I'm about to start a business, open a business. Why am I starting this business? Am I starting this business to stimulate the nation's economy? Am I starting this business to do good work for my hereafter? Or am I starting this business to be like one of the grazers, like the cattle? I just want to eat and mate and poo and whatever I want to do. What is my purpose? What is my objective when I want to do this? Okay, so how do I set my goals and how do I achieve my goals? Firstly, I said I need to know who am I and what I'm able to do. A lot of the charts that they tell you, for example, they're good to use, but you don't use the models they tell you. You use a wheel of life, as they put. But the wheel of life that you look at, and I will tell you to put it in this manner. Number one, you need to look at what's your big picture or your main objective is what? Ridwanullah. Gaining the acceptance of Allah. So it doesn't matter that I have a set job or a set field that I'm going down. Does this field or this job fall under what Allah Azza wa Jal permits? Not, oh, my child, like some people in our community, if their child deals drugs, it's a bad thing. But if their child works in a pub, it's a good thing. You say, why? Because one's legal and one's illegal? Yeah, that's what they look at. But they're both haram. So the first thing I must look at is the akhirah. Everything else becomes a subgroup, a group below this. Okay? Because the akhirah encompasses everything. And the dunya, like I said, is my sub-goal. What it is in my life that I want. You'll find, and obviously I'm giving you a religious perspective, at the same time, you'll find a lot of the things that have to do with living a good life have to do with having a life that you need to see that is good for you. One of the brothers that I know, he had a job, and he won't mind me, I'm not going to say his name, but he had a job, he was working with a sports club, okay? And while he was there, he was doing something that he liked, and his kids were getting a good Arabic, Islamic education, and it was in his region, and he was happy where he was. Then he called me, he said, I've been given an offer at another sports club, it's far away, it's about an hour away, an hour and a half away from where I live, and they're giving me a bigger salary, a much bigger salary. And I said, then why have you called me? He said, I don't know. And I said, brother, the fact you've called me speaks a lot. Number one, think about this. I go, your life, is there anything you don't like about that person? He said, no. I said, then why are you taking other offers? He said, there's no more money. I said, but you're not going to be happier. You're happy where you are. The situation that you are in, your kids are in Islamic schools, your kids are learning Arabic, your kids, you have more time with them. And this is a big thing. I couldn't find this anywhere. Someone once taught us about this triangle of happiness. He said, look for where you live. That has to be the central part. And then the 3 points, he says, where you work, where your children go to school, and where you shop. And another one says where you socialize. The smaller the triangle is and where you live, he says, the more happiness you have. Why? Because you know those people, I used to remember people, they used to come from Wyong up in the north coast and they come to work and they go back. They're miserable lives. They don't have a life. They go back home, they go to sleep. That's it. They don't have a life where their social life becomes what? Their social life becomes their job. That's where they socialize with the people that they go to work with. I look at myself as a person, as a believer. And this is, I don't need a show of hands, something for yourself. How many of you, in your heads, wake up every morning to pray Salatul Subh? Put that in your head. How many of you wake up every morning, no show of hands, to pray Salatul Subh? If I don't wake up in the morning, and I'm saying every morning, to pray Salatul Subh, I have deficiency in my religion. A big deficiency, not small. Firstly, Salatul Subh has 2 rakat. It's nothing. You can get up. I'm not talking about the other mustabhabat of staying up till sunrise. I'm saying just getting up, doing wudu, praying 2 rakat. You can go do a bed crawl. Go back to your bed, go to sleep. You can sleep on the prayer mat. Good luck to you. But I'm saying just to pray. See, sometimes someone comes out, they come back from Hajj, and they want to be mu'min al-taq. They come back from Hajj, he says, I want to pray 51 rakat, I want to do all this, and they go for 3-4 days, bang, then they drop. Because you can't go cold turkey when it comes to this kind of thing. You need to do things gradually, so that's why I set goals. I say, firstly, for example, I'm going to wake up every morning to pray Salat Subh. That's where I start off with. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Then I say, I'm going to recite the iqamah after every prayer. I've set these as goals gradually. And then tasbih al-zahra, salamullah alayha. Then dua. I don't do them all in one go, because the second I start doing everything in one go, what happens? I go back to the way I was. I need to build this gradually, and this is how things happen. I don't take a monthly goal and do it as a daily goal. I've got to do things gradually. I want to start reciting the Quran. What's the first thing you do? You want to start reciting the Quran. Pick up the Quran and read a passage. That's all you do. Pick it up. For example, people that train in the gym. Say they plan on going to the gym 5 days a week. Is it better for you, if you don't feel like training, to stay at home or to actually go in the gym, have a chin wag and come home? It's better for you to go to the gym and have a chin wag. Go have a chat with people. Why? So you don't get out of that routine. So I pick up the Quran, I read a passage. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alif Lam Mim. Close, see you later. Do that for a week, 2 weeks. Then I start reading 10 verses. Then a page. I move up in this manner. I gradually move. Before you know it, you won't be one of those people. I know people that don't do one khatmi of the Quran in Shahr Ramadan. I know people that even do three khatmet in Shahr Ramadan. Why? Because they're reading Quran the whole year. And I'm not talking about 3 khatmet people that are living in the shrine of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen doing. I'm talking about people that, like you, they go to work every morning, they have lives and have things to do, but they do it because they've made themselves, it's common for them to read the Quran all the time. So when Shahr Ramadan comes along, they can do 2 khatmet, they can do 3 khatmet of the Holy Book. So we have the saying, says Rome wasn't built in a day. Isn't that right? And Allah Azza wa Jal, who created everything, who can create everything by saying kun fayakun. Like this, it can just happen. When He created the heavens and earth, when He created the heavens and earth, how did He create them? Fi sittati ayyam, through 6 days. Or 6 days does not mean 6 days as we have the sun's cycle on the earth. 6 days is in 6 epochs, 6 periods of times. Okay, periods of time. Why did God create it like this? To show us that things are done gradually. Things are done in stages. One of the things that they use, and people that have set goals probably have heard this before, it's called the Eisenhower Matrix. And this is something that helped me with my goals. The Eisenhower Matrix. How does that work? You know how you have those safety charts at work? How when you want to know something serious or not, they say it's based on what? How dangerous is it? And how imminent the danger is. Isn't that right? If the danger is very imminent and it's very dangerous, it becomes something that is paramount. With the Eisenhower Matrix, the way it works is how important is what I'm doing and how urgent is it. So when it comes to the akhirah, you break that into 4 quadrants. The 4 quadrants that you have, number 1 is do. You have to do it. And so everything pertaining to the akhirah goes in the first quadrant. Salah is do. Before anything, it's salah time, I get up and pray. It's number one. Nothing comes before that. Obeying my parents, number one. My parents asked me to do something, I listen to them. Taban, within reason, we're talking about this, because not all parents should be given authority over things, even their children. We're talking about sane, reasonable, sensible parents. We're not talking about parents that tell them, listen, go put a fork into the electric socket. This is what we're talking about. So, listening to my parents is paramount. It goes in that first group. The second group is when something is important, but it isn't urgent. What do? You ever seen, let's take a look at the structure of an Islamic center. In a committee, who do you think does all the work in an Islamic center? Say the committee has 10 people. How many of them think do all the work? Most of the work. About 2 or 3 people. The rest, they're like the extra blades in a shaver. They're just there for the ride. They just turn up, have their tea, laugh and go. That's the way it is. In business it's the same. So what the problem is, it's not the other 7, it's the 3 that are the problem. Why? Because they should be delegating. Can't be done, pass it to someone else to do it. And that's what's called management skills. You manage your goals like that. If something I can't do, I delegate to someone else. Okay? That's how my life is, and I set my goals like that. I don't take everything on myself. And that was a thing I saw that I was doing wrong in my life. I want to do something. I can't do this, but it needs to be done. But I'm not in a hurry to get it done. I get someone else to do it. I delegate. And then there are other things that are important. Okay? When I say they are important, but they're not urgent. The other one was they're urgent, but they're not important. I delegate. But then there are other things that are important, but they're not urgent. I plan ahead on how I'm going to do them. They're the things I plan for. For example, I want to go to the Hajj. It's important, but it's not urgent, because right now, where am I? I'm in Rabi' al-Awwal. I've got time. So I plan to go to the Hajj. Not last second go, you know what, I think I'm going to go Hajj. No, I planned from before. I'm going to Hajj this year. I make the intention. And I plan to go. The final one is something that's not important and that's not urgent. What do I do with that? Scrap it. There's no purpose in even thinking about doing this, because this will save your time. The other thing that they will tell you is another chart for you to even look at. I remember they actually gave us, once I was at IHIC and Brother Rob, he gave us a talk. He gave us this thing called SMART. And this was one of the things that triggered me. Okay, he said SMART, something has to be specific, it has to be measurable, it has to be attainable, achievable, and it has to be relevant, it has to be time-bound. The first thing specific, that I actually have a goal that I want. Not maybe I want this, it's specific. That's exactly what I want. I want, for example, mentioning Hajj, I want to go to Hajj. I want to be there at this time for this long. And that's specific. And it has to be something that can be measured. Something that I know exactly when I'm mentioning this, that I know exactly what it is, so I can keep track of my progress. For example, I want to make $10,000 to go Hajj, and I've got, say, 10 months. I know I need to save $1,000 a month. And I need to, that's how it's got to be. And the other thing, it's got to be attainable. What does that mean when it says something that's attainable? It has to be realistic. I can't say, for example, I want to go in first class, and I know that I won't make the first class ticket if I work for 10 years. It has to be something that is actually achievable. And the thing is, that's really important, it has to serve a purpose. It has to be relevant. That's what they are for. It has to be something that serves a purpose. There's a reason for it. And once again, with T, it has to be time-bound. It has to be related to time. Allah Azza wa Jal does this first and foremost. He sets a goal for His creation and a purpose that is clear. And this is the introductory verse. He says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That your purpose here is what? Is for the worship of Allah. The reason you are here are to be what? Servants of Allah. Are to be subordinate to Allah. Are to obey Allah. And this is paramount. Why? Because if you look at the chart of what's urgent and important, how many of you can for certain say you're going to live by tomorrow? How many of you can be certain about this? No one does. No one knows what happens. May Allah prolong your lives in His service, but no one knows what awaits them around the corner. How many of you knew we're going to be in the last 2 years living as recluse monks? How many of you knew this? Every time a virus comes out, it's another virus, avian flu, swine flu, SARS, whatever it is. That's what everyone thought when COVID came out. Who thought we're going to be locked at home? Who thought all this was going to happen? No one knows what's around the corner and about to happen to them. So firstly, if you take a look at Allah Azza wa Jal, how the purpose of creation went. If you look through the prophets, when He sent Adam alayhi salam to the earth, Adam was here, he lived with his family as a prophet and a Rasul to his family. It went towards Noah. Look at their objective. Noah's objective, you take a look at the whole time, was to stop the people from what? Idol worship. That's all it was. Don't worship these idols. These idols are useless. When is the first part of law? Take a look historically. When did law come in? Don't do this and don't do that. We call it what? Mosaic law. It came, as not as in mosaic as in the artwork, but Mosaic law, that it came from the Prophet Musa. The 10 Commandments, the laws, they all came in because everything was initially the first law. What was the first law? Hear, O Israel, your Lord God is one God. That's the first law. The first law was always about Tawheed, believing that was always what? It's always the pivot. It's what everything focuses upon is Tawheed, the monotheistic religion. The belief in one God is always what it's about. Then it got all the way to Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Even with Rasulullah, for the first 40 years, Allah didn't, like Nabi Isa at the birth of Rasulullah, tell him, all right, announce that you're a prophet. Yes, He made the archway of Kesra shake and bits fell off it. Yes, He made the fire of Zoroaster turn out, extinguish, although it had been lit for thousands of years. Yes, a lot of things took place. The miracle that took place where the punishment of God came down on Abraha and his men, all these things happened, yet there was no announcement of prophethood. The prophet lived with the people, amongst the people, so they could see that there was no one teaching him. There was no one coming around teaching. When we say, when people say the prophet was ummi, does not mean that the prophet was illiterate. He was not taught by anybody. Allamahu shadidul quwa. Allah Azza wa Jal taught the prophet. No one taught the prophet. So he lived amongst the people, didn't have anyone teach him how to read or write. Why? This is relevant. Why? Because many years later, they'll come out with the arguments of the prophet knew this because he studied this or studied that. There's no evidence of him studying all those around him. All they saw was an honest and trustworthy child grow into a teenager, into a man, and they would call him as-sadiq al-amin. You are the honest and you are the trustworthy. This is how Allah's purpose and goals for creation was, until he reached the age of 40 and all the people around would trust him and he would call them and say anything and they would believe him. And then he didn't just pour it all on them. It wasn't all poured from the beginning. In Mecca, how did he start his message? قُولُوا لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ تُفْلِحُوا. He came to the Meccans, that was stage one, calling them towards what? Tawheed. Believing in God. Did he say anything else? He said, believe in God. That's how he worked. Let's see who I can grab from the people they're following, come towards God in the nicest possible manner. That was stage one. Stage two was establishing the Islamic State. When I say the real Islamic State, how does he establish the Islamic State? In Medina. He begins first by building the epicenter. The focal place for all Muslims, the masjid, the house of God. The masjid was what for Islam? The masjid in Islam was, when we say masjid, what people think? It's a house of prayer. No. The masjid is the house of prayer. The masjid was the court. The masjid was the school. Everything took place in the masjid. Why? Because in the masjid, nothing is to enter ill speak other than what is related to Allah Azza wa Jal. So he established that. 53 mosques he built. Then the spread of Islam, calling those towards Islam, and defending Islam from those that wished to fight Islam. And when he returned to Mecca, those that did not come to Islam initially came after they had been conquered. So Quraysh had turned by this time, but it had come in gradually, bit by bit. The Prophet didn't just say, we need to do everything at once. Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't work like this. Everything is brought in stages. There are set goals, set periods. Once they are finished, then I'm ready to move on to the next thing. And that's how I must do my life. I look at myself right now. Where am I? Where do I aspire to be? How am I going to get there? They're the questions you need to ask yourself. How do I break it up so that I move from one checkpoint to the next until I have achieved the goal that I aspire for? And that's how you get your goals. And that's how you achieve things. And that's how you become from somebody that initially has nothing with them to become a success in your life. We're talking about success that is bound by the laws of Allah Azza wa Jal and the assistance and the protection of Allah. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us success in our lives, especially by doing what Allah asks from us, and not to take us from this world until He is pleased with us. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us the opportunity to visit the shrines of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam wal-a'immat al-ma'sumin alayhim afdal as-salat was-salam. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to hasten the reappearance of our master Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Mahdi arwahuna fidah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma qul حجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات وإلى أرواح موتانا وموتاكم رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
Just a quick reminder, just want to tell you about tomorrow. The Ja'fari is involved in a cemetery with other organizations, which is for the Muslims at large. That was worked on for a few years, and alhamdulillah, they've started working. We started burials there. It's under the management of these organizations, and the Ja'fariya being one of them. And the cemetery is called the Paradise of Al-Zahra alayhi salam, Jannatul Zahra. Tomorrow at 11 a.m. inshallah would be like an informative session and an open day for the cemetery, even though we've already started using it. And we've invited everyone that attends centers, and especially the people that attend this center, to go and spend just a bit of time, even half an hour there, have a look at the place, ask some questions. We have a mortuary, a maghsal there, that's for us, that we use, and you see the size of the cemetery. Alhamdulillah, that should be able to cater for us, for the Muslims, for the next 25 to 30 years, which we had a problem earlier before we achieve this, that there was issues with trying to find space at different cemeteries and everything scattered around. This particular cemetery gives you the option to pre-purchase, which other cemeteries don't give you that, and you can pre-purchase it on either upfront payment or on a payment plan. And we have like a Facebook page. We've been sending out some digital flyers that if you want to contact and find further information. I'm one of the people working on that, inshallah. If anyone has any questions or wants to get more information, I'm more than happy to assist. It would be good to see some of you guys, if not all of you guys, at the cemetery tomorrow. Between 11 and 4, inshallah, we'll be there, whatever time suits people, if they can make it, to familiarize themselves with the area and with the cemetery. And this is under the management of these organizations, Jam'iyya being one of them. That's all. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.